So, hi everyone. Happy June. Happy hot June. We're here for the Wild Ones Greater Cleveland monthly chapter meeting, where our mission is to promote Native landscapes through education, advocacy, and collaborative action. We've just kind of been going through what's blooming in our own yards. I also have this cute little video, if it plays, speaking of bumblebees, of some threadleaf blue star with a little bumblebee guy on it, that I took about 2 weekends ago. So if anybody else has anything exciting that's blooming that hasn't spoken up yet, let us know, or let us know in the chat. Nope, that's not what I want. There we go. Okay, now go ahead, Sherry.
Okay. So thank you, Ben, for being here this evening. Ben is the founder of Rubber City Reuse, local company specializing in composting of food scraps and yard waste. He is a former chef and served as board chair for Akron Cooperative Farms from 2018 to 2022. He currently volunteers in the locomotive shop for the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad. Ben is active in multiple historic preservation efforts around Northeast Ohio. Ben has a BA from the University of Akron and graduated from Wadsworth High. He lives in Akron's Canal Place downtown and regularly frequents anything CVNP related. You can find him hiking the towpath from downtown any given day with his beagle named Frank.
I love that.
Welcome, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with you guys. Yeah, today I'm going to talk a little bit about composting, and I could tell by the conversation beforehand, we've got some pros here, so I'll go over kind of some of the basic stuff, you know what I mean? It never hurts to assume, but yeah, well then we'll just kind of get into a little discussion. It's kind of the evening, so I won't hit you death by PowerPoint, you know what I mean? We're not in class today. And but yeah, we'll talk some composting, maybe some strategies, and yeah, kind of what we do. So yeah, let's see here. Presentation wise, I have a little slide deck though, if you want me to share it, or I can just chat, is fine by me. You guys tell me what you think.
If you have something, it would be great.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'll click share. It says I can't share while the other participant is sharing. Let's see.
I'm trying to get there. Hold on.
Oh, all good.
Sorry. There we go.
So what I'll do. Oh, I can just oh, cool. Okay. In just a moment, bring this up here. Share my screen. Yeah, let's do that. Cool. Okay. So can you guys see my screen okay? I'm gonna switch over to the little PowerPoint here.
There you go.
Are you seeing it?
Yes,
Okay.
but we also see us.
Oh yeah.
We also see several slides, not just one slide. Look, it almost looks like you're on a phone.
I am mobile. I'm guilty of that. Let's see here.
Do you want us, can you email it to us real quick and I can
Yeah, let's
share
do
it?
that. Yeah. What's the email you want me to share it to real quick?
Wild Ones Greater Cleveland at Gmail.
Perfect.
As fun it would be to watch whoever's talking pop up on a screen.
Stop sharing here.
We'll get it figured out.
Yeah, you know, let me know if you get it.
I got it.
Uh, oh, cool. Okay, cool. If you guys want, in the meantime, I'll kind of tell you a little bit about like Rubber City, how we got started, a little bit about me, kind of give you a little bio background. Yeah, like it said, I was a chef for 8 years in Los Angeles, and people always ask me how I got into composting. It's kind of life classic crazy story. Yeah, I was a chef in LA for 8 years, grew up in Wadsworth, moved out there right after high school. And I had a food truck for a while, and I got my food truck down to just um, plastic waste and food scraps. And then there was this company that started out there called Compostable LA or Compost LA, and they started taking my food scraps. Fast forward a couple years, when I moved home, um, I was reading Crane's Business Cleveland, and they kind of did like a "Where Are They Now" thing, and they were discussing Rust Belt Riders, who's up in the Cleveland area, who does what we do. And they were chatting a little bit about how they got started, and I was like, "Oh wow, I remember they were doing that in Los Angeles," and I thought, well, I wonder if I could do that in Akron. So I actually called them up, and I said, "Hey, do you have any plans on doing what you do down in Akron?" And they said, "No, no, yeah, plenty busy up here." And I said, "Well, hey, could I come? Could I come learn from you?" And they said, "Yeah, come on up." So I went up. I spent a couple days just kind of chatting them up, seeing how things go, seeing how it works, some of the pitfalls to watch out for. And I came home, and later that night, I bought an old pickup truck from like Appalachia, Ohio, and I drove it home for like $500. It overheated twice on me, and but we got it home, got it fixed up, and got a couple buckets, and just kind of started a little website. Started working there at Akron Cooperative Farms, composting there. Fast forward, we just celebrated 5 years in business. We've got like 5 employees now. None of the trucks overheat anymore. We've even got 2 new cars. We even just bought our first electrical car, which is kind of cool. And we'll use that for like route supervision and customer care, things like that. So we're trying to be as sustainable as possible, vehicle wise. But yeah, we service everyone from households to large corporations. We started actually service wise right before the pandemic. So it was kind of a bummer. We literally got our first customer in February of 2020. And that was a commercial cafeteria that then closed down 2 months later. So it was a little scary moment there, a little touch and go in the beginning. And so we kind of made a decision to pivot to meeting folks where they were, which was at home. So we started getting the 5-gallon buckets and the lids and started doing, we call it curbside service, where you fill your bucket up with food scraps throughout the week. And then we swap it out for a clean new bucket once a week on Fridays. And so we started doing that, which was really cool. It got us a little notoriety because, the hot topic was what are businesses doing to kind of pivot. We won an award through the Greater Akron Chamber, which was cool, for their Grit Award, which was really neat for our pivot to residential. And it probably wasn't the best financial wise to do in the beginning, but 5 years in now, we've got it. It's working well. And our commercial customers have come back as well, which is really cool. But like I said, we service anyone from little households to places like Akron Children's Hospital. We compost all their food scraps from their central cafeteria, things like that. And yeah, so we operate mainly in Summit County, but we also service Portage, a little bit of Medina, and Stark County as well. And then anyone kind of north, we just usually refer to Rust Belt for service. So then the presentation I have here today is just a little bit about composting at home. So people always ask me, why I advocate so much for people to compost at home when I, literally have a service that, pays to compost for you. And the reason being, while it's an old technique, people have been composting for a very long time. It's also great because most of our customers already compost. So we can take things because we use kind of like a larger commercial process. And all that really means is we just use a big giant pile instead of like a small one like you have at home. And so we can get our piles hotter. We can kind of engineer them temperature wise to kill things like viruses. And so when people ask what we can take, I tell we can take everything, but no liquids, no oils. Liquids just because they're a mess, and oils for obvious reasons. But people always ask, what about bones? And yeah, we can even take bones. So one of my big challenges to myself was to I'm a fan of the Costco rotisserie chicken, and was to see how quick I could compost and like decompose that whole kind of Costco chicken, and got it down, and no issues. And I always tell people as a side note, if you ever got to get rid of a body, don't bury it, don't throw it in the water, compost it. It'll give it a couple months, it'll be gone. But anyways, so here's the presentation I have about composting home. Like I said, I'm sure you guys know a lot about composting. Side note, you guys were all talking about what flowers you have blooming right now, and the flower I have most blooming is thistle. It's looking great right now in my yard and at the yard where we compost, and it's just got lovely little purple flowers all over the place. Taller than the corn is right now, so the thistle's thriving. But yeah, so to the presentation, composting. What is composting? Composting is a natural process of decay and change organic wastes into a valuable humus-like material called compost. And as an aside note, when we started, we called ourselves composters and micro haulers. The industry is moving towards the term organics recycler. And we like that because it kind of broadens the scope. I do still get people saying like, yeah, recycling, it's not a very organic process. And I kind of got to correct them. Organics means anything. If it grows, it goes. So not just yard waste, but you can compost, animal renderings. Yard waste is the big one. So you see the brown paper bags a lot of times on people's curbs. We're currently trying to work through a couple processes with a couple municipalities to collect that for them. And then obviously compost your yard waste. So these are some of the essential, obviously, ingredients in compost. Compost is an aerobic process, which means it needs air. The reason it needs air is because bacteria are really doing all the heavy lifting, and they're living things just like we are. So they need air, water, food, and they need a good temp. So they are thermophilic bacteria, so they like it hot. And as another little side note, which you'll get plenty from me, right now we are actually working to see what we can do tax-wise as an organics recycler, because just kind of like how worm farmers a few years ago were able to become classified as livestock farmers, we are kind of the same as in composters. So our livestock is bacteria. We want to grow our herd. We want our herd to become more resilient. We want it to have offspring. We want it to become strong and healthy. And we need to take care of that. And the reason we take care of our bacteria, because it does all the work. And so we even watch for certain things that are naturally antibacterial, like, well, you don't get it a lot, but eucalyptus or pine have natural antibiotic properties. And while they won't, kill off our compost pile, they will, obviously bring the temperature down, when our goal is to keep it as high as we really can without going too high to where we're destroying nutrients. So yes, so air, water, food, which is the carbon and nitrogen from the food scraps and the yard waste. And that's how we'll even take some of the finished compost, by the way, that's cured or curing and introduce that back into kind of stage one, if you will. And the reason we do that, because the bacteria in the finished compost are going to be stronger, more mature, more resilient than, let's say, the bacteria that are just colonies that are just forming in stage one. And they'll kind of work together to, I guess, teach, if you will, the young bacteria. And yeah, that's what we'll do. Why compost yard and kitchen waste? So this is 2017, but you know, if anything, maybe it dipped a little bit after the pandemic. You know, maybe it increased, especially with kitchen waste, more people at home. I'm not sure. But you know, 58 million tons of yard and kitchen waste go to landfills in the United States every year. Just in the state of Ohio, almost 4 million tons. And the county of Summit, we were able to really break it down. 43,000 tons, city of Akron alone, 20,000 tons and yearly. And, you know, one of the main reasons we don't want organic material to go to landfills is because obviously landfill space is limited. But the main reason is greenhouse gases. So when yard and food waste or organic matter go to a landfill, so we use, like I said, an anaerobic process in our bacteria to break the food and materials down. In a landfill, those materials become anaerobic. And the reason being, if you've ever seen a video of how a landfill works, that tractor right there in that picture in particular has special tires, kind of, if you will, with spikes on them. And its whole goal is to take the material that comes from the garbage truck and compact it as tightly as possible, layer after layer after layer after layer, till you have a mountain. And what that does is it deprives the material of oxygen, so it can't break down properly. So it almost like festers in the landfill. And when that happens, the bacteria can't do their job appropriately to break the material down. And so you get the byproduct methane. Methane is, we know, roughly 80 times more warming pound for pound than CO2. So when people love to talk about greenhouse gases and global warming, we like to focus on CO2. But if we really want to talk about the real silent killer, that would be methane. And for the longest time, we believed the biggest methane emitters were pipelines, actually, oil pipelines. And the reason is they will blow the methane off as a byproduct when pressures get too high. But now we've done, actually, New York Times, an awesome article a couple months ago where, I forget the university, but they flew a plane over the 10 largest landfills in America. So the 10 biggest landfills in America, they flew a plane over them. It had these sensors that detect methane leaks that the oil companies use to find leaks on their pipelines. They use the same instruments. And they found that out of the 10 largest landfills in America, 4 of them were also the largest greenhouse gas emitters in the country, not just landfills, in general. And that was really, really eye-opening. So when you talk about why keep green waste out of landfills, because it's single-handedly probably the most destructive thing we can send to landfills, believe it or not. People like to think batteries, things like that. Of course, we need to watch leachate and groundwater runoff. But the methane plumes that come from landfills is really detrimental. And yeah, so that's one reason that composting at home can be so important and why we teach it as well. This is just kind of a breakdown of the municipal solid waste production in the US. So if you take food waste, yard trimmings, now wood, that includes engineered wood. And obviously you don't want to compost engineered wood for multiple reasons. Engineered wood is things like yellow wood, treated lumber, things like that. But if you just take yard trimmings and food waste alone, paper as well, obviously there's a lot of papers you can compost. You know, you're looking at almost 29%, 28% of all waste is compostable that we're sending to landfills. So over a quarter, which is really incredible because, you know, we think plastics, but yard trimmings, more yard trimmings go to landfills than plastics. And that really kind of shocked me as well because plastics just in my eyes are kind of, you know, the enemy. They are just the antithesis of what we try and do in reuse. And, you know, obviously we know the shortcomings with plastics recycling, but yard trimmings really kind of threw me back when I saw that. It is nice to see that a lot of people are rewilding their yards. Summit Metro Parks, for example, has a program where they will give you a little sign. I think they'll even give you some coaching and probably some wildflower seeds, something like that. But I've been seeing the signs pop up all over, and I love it because people are kind of letting their backyards grow a little more. And people are becoming aware of the spraying and things like that, and the mowing to get rid of the yard trimmings and then sending them off to a landfill is just definitely not best practice for the 21st century, in my opinion. So yeah, this is a breakdown of the solid waste here in the US. And I think that's 2017 as well. So what do you need to make compost? You got your decomposers, like I spoke a minute ago about the thermophilic bacteria, but then fungi as well. So fungi are super important and kind of do more of the material breakdown. They can do a lot of the heavy lifting. And you got to watch, actually. There can be some really gnarly funguses that grow in compost piles. And we didn't know that when we started. And one day I was like, boy, I just don't feel right when I stand around this thing. And we found out all about these fungi that get in your lungs. And luckily we have immune systems. But bacteria and fungi, the food for the decomposers, that's the organic materials to be composted. And then the right amount of air, water, and warmth to keep the crew happy. So that's one question people ask me a lot is, and I hear this all the time. I tried composting, but I wasn't any good at it. And so I have to say, first off, that's the wrong way to look at it. The fact that you're trying it is a win, and you're doing great just trying. But it's really not overly complicated. If you kind of keep roughly to like a 30-to-1 ratio of browns to greens, which I'll talk about here in the next couple slides, you'll kind of get the feel for it as well. And it's kind of funny. Your diet will kind of will take on the personality of, or your compost pile will take on the personality of your diet. So, but yeah, on the next slides here, I'll talk about some of the browns, greens, things like that. Where do decomposers come from? So our worms, our bacteria, our fungi, they come from the soil. One of the reasons we reintroduce the cured compost back into like stage 1. Leaves for some reason have a lot of natural fungi that grow on them, almost like a little shield of armor. Food scraps are great for bacteria, the high nitrogen load. Manure as well. Manure is a great way to really pick up the temperature of your compost pile, really kind of give it a boost. We don't use manure. We don't really need it. We get enough food scraps. And I really only advise, just because animal feed's not really the best. If you're going to use some type of manure in your compost at home, use it just for like a mulch additive or fluffer or nutrient additive and flower beds. I wouldn't, if you do manure, I wouldn't recommend using it in food production, if that makes sense. Antibiotics are another reason as well. Antibiotics will show up in our soil testing, which is wild if we use manure. And then, yeah, like I said, the finished compost. And then these are some commercial additives. We don't necessarily recommend these as well. There's a lot of organic boosters out there. They're not like chemicals per se. And they're not bad. Again, kind of back to the manure thing. If you're going to use these, I wouldn't recommend using them in food production. But these are a couple examples. My sister uses Dr. Earth. She doesn't mind it. And so here's some materials to avoid when at home. So you always hear people say you don't want to compost meats and dairy at home. I'll go along with it, but if I'm being honest, the biggest thing with meats is obviously you want to watch for virals, things like salmonella and things like that. But Mother Nature, she's really kind of built in to help fight that stuff. She's got an immune system just like we do. And if you think of it this way, and I've seen salmonella it can infect plants just like it can humans. And they wilt, they get sick just like humans do. But it kind of stops short. So I'm torn when it comes to this because the impact that it still makes going to a landfill And this might not be the most popular opinion, but maybe that little patch of grass around your compost pile, maybe that's the lamb we have to sacrifice, so to speak, to keep it out of landfills. So I don't know. It's personal preference, but I will say this: cheese can really heat your pile up really well. So, but things to put in, you want to put, fruits, veggies. Coffee grounds are awesome. Coffee grounds are awesome. They're pretty much as close to finished compost as you can get some sort of food scrap. And then yeah, on the right, it's got an example of weeds as well. If you get your pile hot enough, it will kill the weed seeds. It's going to be really tough to get that pile that hot at home. We can at our facilities, but it kind of falls back to what are you going to use it for afterwards. So yeah. Shredding material. The reason we would recommend shredding material in your compost piles is because while we still want pockets of air, we still want kind of a semi-crumbly material to break down. We also want the most surface coverage that we can get. So think that apple core, that wood chip, that whatever we're putting into our compost pile, the smaller we can get it, the better. The reason the smaller we can get it, that means more surface area. The more surface area means it's touching the other things around it more. The more it's touching the other things around it, the quicker the bacteria and fungi can grow and transfer from item to item, therefore increasing the heat because they're breaking down, they're working faster, more efficient. So shredding material is really great, especially if you're going to use paper in your compost pile. Paper is a great carbon source. Shred it up first, especially like newspapers, things like that. Even though they're thin, shred them up first, and you'll get much better results. Kind of like I was talking earlier, my slides are a little out of order, but browns are carbon-rich materials. Think crinkly, dry. Leaves are a great carbon source, but only when they're brown. So leaves are one of the few things that go nitrogen to carbon. When they're green, they're nitrogen. When they're brown, crinkly, and dry, they're going to be a carbon. Greens, nitrogen rich, so food scraps. If you don't have a treated lawn and you still want to collect your lawn clippings though, instead of blowing them on the sidewalk or whatever, grass can get a compost pile really hot. And if you grow corn, by the way, in the fall, once you harvest your corn, chip up those corn stalks, and boy, it's like silage. It gets hot and it will really cook your compost pile. And those corn stalks would be considered greens, by the way. And that says 1-to-3 ratio. That should really say 1-to-30. But in my experience, honestly, for what you're going to produce at home, closer to like a 1-to-15 ratio, 1-to-20 ratio. And that's going to be 1 being the nitrogen or your greens. And then the larger number, whatever kind of works for you. Again, like I said, according to your diet, that'll kind of take on your personality. If you're just a big coffee drinker and you're dumping 5 pounds of coffee grounds in there a day, you're going to use a little less nitrogen. But yeah, you want to get a good ratio going. And the trick is to kind of obviously fold it in from the center out. So you're putting your new stuff into the core of the pile, working the old stuff out towards the edges. And if you get your pile big enough, actually, we did this little study down at OSU ATI last fall. It was really cool on the chimney effect that a compost pile can make. And we kind of designed these compost piles to be way more vertical, or kind of as vertical as we can get, because we found that just like a fire, the compost piles were sucking in oxygen at the base and expelling heat out like the top, kind of like a little volcano. So as you're making your pile, think kind of as round or as steep as you can get it. Some more examples of browns, leaves. Straw is a decent brown, but I'm going to tell you right now, straw is tough. And unless your pile is really hot, and moisture is key with straw, I wouldn't recommend it. Straw, it just takes forever to break down. And at home, unless you've got like a family of 20 and the kids just waste every meal, you're just not going to generate really enough food scraps to break down straw. So, but you can also see kind of the ratios there. It's much higher. Paper, sawdust is great. Sawdust is going to increase that surface area, like I said, but then you've also got to watch because kind of on the flip side, conversely, sawdust also can compact and can kind of make like just a thick brick-like material where the oxygen isn't getting in as well too. So if you do use sawdust, it's great, but use it sparingly because you can oversaturate and compact, and then your pile can get anaerobic. And that's a tall tale sign of when your pile gets anaerobic is it will smell very ammonia-y or almost like kind of like a cat pee, to be honest. And that's again, that ammonia smell is a byproduct of improper breaking down. So that can happen with sawdust quite a bit. But animal bedding mixed with manure. While I said we don't really take straw or manure, one of our customers that we do work with at RCR is the Akron Zoo. So we take all their animal bedding, and it's quite a bit. And we will make like our own non-organic piles. They're off-site, which is kind of cool. So they give us a little area to do it. And then in turn, the compost that we make from that, they then mix with their mulch every spring. And so if you go to the Akron Zoo and you're like, man, the flowers look damn good around here. It's full cycle right there. We call it royal poop because we'll get like lion, and they all have to have their own bins too, because that was the big sticking point for the vets at the zoo was they don't want any cross contamination. So the thing we're collecting, like the lion animal bedding in, cannot go to the ostrich exhibit, for example. They all have to have their own toters for the straw. And so it's kind of cool though. The giraffes are coming this it's kind of a gross conversation, I guess, but the giraffes are coming this fall, so we're excited to see what giraffe poops look like because we know what lion is now, wolf, all these different things, and so we're interested to see what a giraffe animal bedding looks like. But yeah, some examples of greens, nitrogen. Vegetable scraps, obviously. Coffee grounds, again, are awesome. They are the rock star of the compost world. We don't do a lot of free stuff. I mean, we do a lot of in-kind services for nonprofits, but in terms of like just regular for-profit commercial customers, coffee shops are one of the only customers we will actually, if I can fit them on a route, we'll collect their stuff for free. It is just so nitrogen packed. It is so moist. It is so kind of like sawdusty like that we will, if a coffee shop is on the route, one of our routes already, and a truck drives by every day, I will go into that coffee shop and we will offer to pick their stuff up for free, which is kind of cool. So if you drink coffee at Akron Coffee Roasters or what's their place on Front Street in Falls? I forget, but both of those places are there. Cassava or Cava Coffee in Barberton.
Asterisk, maybe?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't think of it
Yeah.
either. Good job, Aaron.
I wonder why you called one Akron Coffee Roasters and that. Why didn't you just call that Cuyahoga Falls Coffee Roasters? Or I don't know. But yeah, we'll pick up their stuff because coffee grounds are great. Grass clippings again. Just watch. I don't know if this is the crowd that treats their lawn, but if you do, I would not recommend grass clippings. Forever chemicals are a very real thing, and we are learning so much about them. And we are learning very quickly that our yards are major contributors. So, but yeah, those are some examples of greens. Just a little more detail about them. Greens and browns. You can see there, greens obviously are going to have poor aeration because of the liquids, the moisture in them. The browns are going to decay more slowly. Browns are also important, not just as our carbon ingredient, but yeah, because they are coarser and a little more rough, they'll give us those air pockets I was talking about previously when I was telling you about sawdust. So think leaves, they're crinkly, they're all uneven. Another reason they're great is because they help with the aeration. So yeah, these are just a few different things about browns and greens in detail. Oh, side note, if you do keep your grass and you got like, I got enough nitrogen, anytime you can let something sit before you add it to your compost pile, I mean, other than like nitrogen, like greens, but your browns, the longer you can kind of let them sit, like the better. We'll take in leaves from City of Cuyahoga Falls, and we'll sit on them like a year before we add them into our pile, just because by the time we add them, like Mother Nature's beat them up already, but they're still kind of coarse and they're great. If you can age your browns, the more the better. And then yeah, just a little bit like what is aerobic composting. Like I said earlier, that's the introduction of oxygen or the breaking down of material with oxygen. If you're doing it right, no foul odors. That's one thing people always ask me is, oh, how bad do your compost piles stink? And I'm like, well, not really, because they're cooking hot. So a lot of the stink, if you will, is kind of being cooked off. The only time we will get them where they'll be a little stinky is if we get like a heavy snowstorm and that snow kind of sits on top and insulates the piles. It'll get them almost too moist in the wintertime. It doesn't stop the process, by the way. People always think like, oh, it gets cold out, the pile must stop decomposing. Not at all. In fact, they're so hot. If we get a snowstorm, our compost piles will like stick out in a big sea of white because just like if the ground is too warm in early fall or early winter and it'll be snowing, but it won't stick to the ground. That's kind of how our compost piles are, no matter how cold it gets outside. But with wintertime, they will get a little too moist. So aerobic composting and temperature. This is so active composting. Yeah, 55, I would say, but yeah, it's a little low. You want to go 100 plus, to be honest, if you're really trying to make compost in less than 10 decades. But we will get our piles, for example. So after you go past like 150, 145 degrees, the heat will start, you get kind of a trade-off where, yeah, you'll start breaking the material down real quick, but your nutrient load and trace minerals will kind of start to be burnt off. So because our goal is, yeah, we want to engineer some really good soils. Our goal is also, because we have caps through the EPA, we can only have so much per site. Our goal is to break it down as quickly as possible. And so we will get our piles up to about 180. The hottest I ever got the core of my pile, according to my Rio temp thermometer, I got one of my piles up to like 208 one time in the core. And that was really cool. But you got to watch, because with our piles, they will get so hot. We've really got to watch contamination. So if you think of like a crock pot, what a crock pot does to like a rack of ribs after like a day of cooking. So our compost piles will be just as hot, if not hotter. And instead of, a couple hours, it will be over the course of weeks, months. And so we've got to watch contamination, because our piles will get so hot over such a long period of time, they will melt plastic. And we didn't realize that at first until when I started. I was probably a year in, and I started noticing like these, just like chunks of plastic. I'm like, what? Obviously it's plastic, but what was this? Where the hell did this come from? It's plastic bottles. Plastic bottles will melt in our compost piles, and they turn into like a puddle of polymer. And yeah, anyways, that's a little bit about temperatures and compost piles. At home, if you can get your compost pile up to 120 degrees, you are a rock star. You're doing great. Anywhere between 100 and 120, you're going to get the decomposition that you want. And if you think over the course of a year, you'll have compost by springtime for your flowers, or fall, however you kind of set it up. This shows a little bit about what I was talking about, some of the chimney effect that we were looking into. And you're going to see air in at the bottom, air out at the top. So when you think of how you're building your compost pile, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, and keep it as open as you can. A lot of those, composting bins that you can get commercially, they're not bad. They're not bad. If you do go that route, by the way, get ones with multiple chambers. The single chamber composters, in my opinion, are, kind of silly, because you're always, maybe every day, every other day, whatever, always adding new material. So if we're always adding new material to one chamber and breaking it down, well, when do we give it a break and kind of move it to the next step of, curing or getting ready to apply to our garden without applying it with a fresh chunk of apple in there or something? So if you can, think multi-chamber, and the more vents, the more way for air to get in, the better. And this is just kind of an example of how you can increase porosity. The pipes work pretty good. We used to do this for a while. There was this old brickyard kind of by our yard in Mogador, and we went back in there and found a bunch of PVC pipe, and we cut holes in it, and we were doing that for a while. And I won't lie, it worked great. It looked like we had like little smokestacks in the wintertime. It was really cool because the steam was just pouring out the top of them, which was cool. You know, we knew it was cooking. The problem was when we would go to turn the piles, you know, the Bobcat is not the most gentle when it comes to a plastic pipe. And we found that it didn't really break it down quick enough for us to, we like to be lazy and just sit on the tractor when we turn the piles. Let me just put it that way. But at home, these pipes, they're great. Drill a couple holes in the bottom or just use the hole at the other end of the pipe. You don't even have to drill. And they'll help you out a lot too. Now, this shows it coming from the top. I would actually recommend coming in from the sides. The reason being, we're trying to draw air in with these pipes, and we know air comes in more from the bottoms and the sides. So if you're going to use this pipe method, I would recommend like coming in horizontally with your pipe at the bottom of the pile and only going to like the core. Obviously, you don't want to go all the way through the pile, but kind of go to the core and go horizontally with the pipes if you're going to go that way. But yeah, corn stalks are great too. That mentions corn stalks there, but yeah, water is important. Bacteria are living things. They like to drink water, and the hotter they get, just like us, we can relate with this heat wave. The hotter it gets, the more we want water. And so when you think summertime, you're going to want to water a little more. Cool thing is we have a pond by all our compost piles. The EPA mandates that we try to control our leachate, which is just a silly term they created for anytime water touches a compost pile. But anyways, so we went ahead, we collected it in a little pond that we lined with clay, and that leachate and rainwater that we collect is also what we water our piles with. So we don't draw from a well, we don't use city water. We use pure captured rainwater that's already, to a degree, almost like compost tea. So it's great. It's already packed with that bacteria. I would not swim in this pond, by the way. It is pretty gnarly. Snapping turtles seem to love it, which is cool. They're fine. But yeah, we'll reuse that water. And that's how we water our piles. Pile content should be 40 to 60%. That's pretty, yeah, I would say closer to 60%, to be honest. Again, you just want to watch. You don't want to get, you know, overly wet where you're making like a sludge and it starts to smell like ammonia. But very rarely, if you know, if you've got to water manually and you're adding it, let's say you do overwater, by the way, you know, just add more browns. They're good for soaking that stuff up. Don't add greens. But it's kind of hard to overwater a compost pile. Most people underwater, if anything. Yeah. Taking care of your compost. Obviously the mixture of browns and greens, regularly turning. People ask me a lot about like what's you know, how often should I turn my compost pile? Well, that's going to completely depend on your compost pile. So again, like I said, your food or your compost pile will take on the personality of what you eat, or from what you eat rather. And so you know, if it's, you want to go by temperature, but not everyone has a thermometer. Temperature wise, when the temperature drops, I usually say like around 100 to 110 for our piles at least, you'll want to turn. So as it cools down, that means the process is slowing. So we want to turn it to reintroduce that oxygen to speed it back up. Roughly once a week. If you set aside, you know, hey, every Saturday morning I go and pull weeds from my gardens. It's a little thing I do. Well, every Saturday add turning your compost pile to it as well. You'll be fine. You can't really overturn it. I mean, I guess you can, but if you stick to once a week, you'll be fine. Side note, if we got some permaculturists here, I always like to tease. Permaculture is just like lazy composting. I'm sorry, vermiculture. We just make a pile of food scraps and browns, and we don't ever turn it. We just let the worms do their thing. So you can also go that route. You know, when I first was learning compost, I made a little pile, and I thought, well, how long, you know, if I just break it down? It made really good stuff, and the worms loved it because they kind of moved in at their own speed. If you think about it, but roughly once a week, turning your compost pile will be fine. Making compost the fast way. Obviously, I wouldn't even say this the fast way. Um, this is just how you make compost morning. During the first few weeks, temps should reach under 40. It's gonna be tough to get that at home. It's gonna be tough to get that at home. If you get 120 at home, be super stoked because you're doing great. Yeah, like I said, every week, 5 to 7 days. So compost is finished. I always tell folks it should be kind of like dry Play-Doh. So if you grab like a handful of it, if you know like Play-Doh, we leave it out, it's still kind of malleable, but it also crumbles. That's what you want. You want an earthy smell. You don't want any ammonia or nonsense. And kind of like if you're baking a cake and you put the toothpick in and it comes out clean, that cake's done. Kind of same deal for compost. You take your shovel and you like stick it in the pile, pull it out, and your shovel comes out pretty clean. She's probably finished. And once it's finished, though, let it sit. The reason we cure the compost is what we call it for a couple months. Is if you think of finished compost, well, yes, it's finished, everything's broke down. It is just packed full of nutrients, like packed. And you could, if you apply it too soon, you could burn your plants. You could nitrogen burn them, which is when the leaves kind of turn brown and kind of like curl in from the edges it's from too much nitrogen. So we let it cure. And another reason we do that is because the compost will actually be more efficient at what it does if we let it cure. If you were to look at like, let's say, like a graph, if we add fresh compost, it's going to be like a sugar high. You're going to see a big spike in nutrients, followed by a pretty decent drop off as well, like kind of like a sugar high. So what we want is we want a nice gentle curve that stays at its apex for a long time and then slowly, gradually comes back down to normal. Cured compost is what will do that for you. So when your compost is done, just let it sit. Literally, let it sit for like a month. And some people even come out and like turn their cured compost once in a while. Can't hurt. But also kind of keep it covered. The sun can zap a lot of nutrients really quick. So while it's curing, leave it covered for a little bit. Yeah. Simple tests, bag test, leave it for several days, produce no foul odor. This is a good one. I would refer more to the shovel. If you really want bags of compost sitting around your house, that's fine. But yeah,
Hey,
shovel's
Ben,
better.
just so you know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to cut you off at 8. Is
Oh
there
yeah,
is
absolutely.
there a certain slide you want me to go to, or you just want me to keep going?
Nope, this is great.
We're good. Okay.
In fact, if you'd like, we'll just do a Q&A now if that's cool. I think we kind of get the gist. And if anyone's got any questions, I'd love to answer them. Any questions about your compost at home or about what we do at RCR, about taco recipes. I've got a great whiskey marinated steak that I cover with a sriracha aioli. We can chat about that. But any questions, please let me know in the chat or just shout them out.
I'm gonna
So,
go.
Bill,
ahead.
I was about to say, Bill, why don't you cover the possible recommendations, since most of these are homeowners, where might be a good spot? Because I did see that one slide as we passed by it, so that might be good to just cover with the group.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, good spot. Keep it away from the house. For simple reasons, you just don't, you don't want a pile of rotting stuff next to your house. I like to put them somewhere a few feet out from like a tree line. So sun is great, but sun can also beat our compost up and rob us of a lot of nutrients. And then rain conversely can wash them away. But we also need sun. We also need rain for our compost to thrive. So if you've got like some woods or a few trees, a few feet away from those trees, if you don't have that, a lot of times folks will have sheds. Put it on, I mean, depending on where your house, put it on where you're going to get like, I think 50% shade. So we got a lot of flower growers here. So yeah, 50% sun or whatever is usually the best place. A lot of people will put them on the side of their garages. I see like when I'm out in suburbs a lot of times. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that people always ask about animals. That's a big concern, especially like in the suburbs. You're gonna have a lot of animals, raccoons, things like that. I know and again, this is probably a controversial opinion, but people like to say, keep your trash cans closed and stuff so raccoons stay wild. Raccoons, for example, have been eating our trash for thousands of years. You're in Northeast Ohio, you're not going to make any more or less of a wild raccoon if they get into your compost pile, if that makes sense. And at the end of the day, hey, they're just hungry little guys.
Well, that picture, he looks so cute.
They are cute and they're really, really smart. But when they do get into our bins, let's say at our yard, they make an absolute mess. If you've ever watched a raccoon eat, they use their little hands and fingers and nibble away at stuff. But their favorite thing to do is they put the food down and they like roll it like they're rolling dough to mush it so they can get like the seeds and stuff out of the. Anyways, they will do that and it just makes just a horrible mess. Horrible mess.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And people always ask too about like rats. I see rats on there. I've never once had rats. You got to remember these compost piles are hot. So, if I'm like a little mouse and the core of my compost pile is 130 degrees, I don't want to be in 130 degrees just like that mouse doesn't. So, people always ask me like, do they burrow into your piles? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. It's, it's 180 degrees in there. I wouldn't be in there. And even then, like they don't locate nearby and get, we're required by law. We have to tip our bins within 48 hours. But no, the biggest thing is raccoons. Raccoons. But they're what are you gonna do?
Well, my kitchen scrap contains regular supply of eggshells. And even after,
Oh yeah.
after the compost has cured, mixed, been turned for months, maybe even a whole year, you can still see the eggshell in the compost, even though everything else seems to have disappeared. Am I doing something wrong? Is that anything to be concerned with?
No, eggshells are just really durable. They're like pure calcium, which we need. That's a great trace mineral. All I would say is if it's a like a optics thing, maybe bury them under the dirt once you apply your compost. But the thing that's going to break them down is going to be heat and moisture. So yeah, they're going to be tougher to break down at home. Obviously, we don't mind them at all. We will take entire like 96-gallon toters from like the Eye Opener in West Akron, just full of eggshells, just their eggshells on like a Sunday morning. And we can break them down because it's hotter and cooler. But best I could tell you at home is just try and break those eggshells down as much as you can. You know what I mean? Kind of maybe not necessarily grind them up. I mean, you could if you got a yard chipper, run them through there literally. It will chop them up. But do the old maybe toss a couple in a Ziploc bag and roll a can of soup over it. You know what I mean? Like if you're crushing nuts, just get it as fine as you possibly can. And then, like I said, if it's an optics thing, just scoot it under the dirt a little bit. Side note, with eggshells, you're not going to get as much nitrogen as you would with a pure, like, let's say apple core. So like when I was talking earlier about, we want to break this stuff down so it's not a huge spike in nitrogen. If you've got, a chunk of eggshell, it's not going to give you the same spike in nitrogen, let's say like an apple core or something would. It's going to be, you're going to get more trace elements out of that, like iron, manganese, calcium. So, nope, nothing wrong. Not doing anything wrong with eggshells. They're great for your compost pile.
Does anybody else
here's some
have
of our
any
info.
questions?
Yeah. And any questions too, always feel free to email, call, text, reach out. Love to have you. I know we were talking, I think maybe having you guys out sometime in July, which would be cool to come see kind of our process out there in Mogador. Might be a little trip, but it's a cute little village there on the east side of Akron. And if you come out, we took basically took over an old nursery, and there is a ton of apple trees. By the way, please get a hold of me if you'd like one. And we're giving away a bunch of apple trees. We don't really know what breed they are. They've been in pots for years, unfortunately. They could use a good pruning. Some are even growing apples in the pot, which is wild. But when this nursery kind of went out of business, a lot of plants were left over. And so we've got about 80 apple trees we're trying to give away. If anyone would like an apple tree, please just call or email me, and we'll get you a free apple tree. I think there's even like some plum and pear trees mixed in there too. They don't look like apples, but again, I don't know what they are.
I was about to
They're
say,
just
Ben,
there.
especially if they're native plum trees. I know several of our members that would love the
Yeah.
native plum trees.
We might
Yeah,
need
no, please get a
some
hold of me.
ID.
Yeah, there's please get a hold of me. There's no catch. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to wrangle you into service. Literally, I just feel so bad for these poor guys. I look at plants like I do like animals. And when you hear that Sarah McLachlan commercial coming on, the eyes of the angel and the dogs stand out in the rain, I swear that's how I feel when I look at these apple trees. I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. I'm gonna get you out of here. We're gonna bust you out, Free Willy. It's just I've got 4 already at my place, and I live in an apartment, so the building's kind of over the apple trees being planted downtown.
Well, we'll see
They
if
are.
we
They
can
told me
help
stop.
find a home, Ben. So, and to your point,
Awesome.
we are definitely going to be working with Ben to finalize a day or two that we can go visit their facility. And we're also going to try to find a few other facilities in July or August in other counties as well. So that way it's convenient for several of our members to, visit a local facility with regards to composting. So thank you again
Yeah,
so
we'd love
much
to have
for
you.
your time, Ben.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And sorry about the little lapse there in the beginning with the presentation. I told you to begin with, I always botch the beginning. So, but thanks for having me. Really happy to be here. And have a great evening, everyone. I'm going to jump off.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Ben.
Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, now that we all have our ideas in our head about how we can compost at home, we will, here we go. Just a little update, housekeeping as far as behind the scenes for us here at Wild Ones Greater Cleveland. We have some new leadership that's joined us. So if you saw the June newsletter come out kind of right at the top, we announced Miss Erin, who's on the call today, has taken over for our Native Habitat Corridor co-chair, and Julie Slater from Meadow City Nurseries has stepped down from the role. And Julie's not on the call tonight, but she was instrumental in her leadership in getting this program and project off the ground. So she's still going to be working with it, just not as much, so she can focus on other things. So thanks, Erin, for stepping up. I don't know if you want to give a quick shout and say hi.
Sure. We're also going to talk more about the corridor in a minute, so
Yes.
ending.
Okay. We also have Sarah joining us. She, both her and Debbie were not able to join tonight, but Sarah's helping with some administrative assistance behind the scenes. And Debbie's our new fundraiser chair. So we're really excited to get some fundraising ideas. So once we kind of have that powwow, we'll kind of release things as they come. So we're very excited. Since last month, we have 4 new members. I don't think anybody on this list is here. That's okay. So, a little welcome. Jessica, do you want to chat about, we have, Wild Ones National. We're going to tease a little a challenge that they have coming up soon, that I think everyone will be looking forward to.
Yes. So thank you, Janice. So yes. So a little birdie told me that there is going to be a community growth challenge that's going to go from right around July 1st, all the way through the end of August. So it's gonna be 2 months. And it's a little bit of like an incentive, like to try to grow our community. And it's gonna give a chance for people to have their own personal refer a friend link. And there's like a little competition, like I don't know all the details yet. They're still getting ready to share the information, but you might be able to win like a limited edition Wild Ones ball cap. I think there's a special prize for some of the chapters that like do really well. So I don't, like I said, have a lot of details yet, but look for that. Like I said, we'll be getting more information like I said, within the next week or two. But because of that, that's going to cause us to launch something that we've been talking about sooner than later. But before we jump to that, there's actually another thing that we just were made aware of as of today. So another initiative that National is going to be launching, we just got the notice today, is there's going to be a Main Street sponsor initiative. So once again, I don't know all the details, but there's going to be some sponsorship opportunities where we work with local businesses, whether it's restaurants, shops, service providers, it doesn't matter. Obviously, we already work very closely with our native nurseries, but with these opportunities, it will allow us to provide them materials like flyers, pre-printed rack cards, sponsorship management, and other sponsorship recognition. So we'll see how that comes out. But we're really excited to see some other opportunities become available to more easily partner with these other organizations that I'm sure would love to support our activities, but might not be quite as natural a fit as the native plant nurseries that we are already working with. So like I said, more to come on that. And then would you go to the next slide? So a few of you might have already heard the ambassador idea like come up in certain conversations with me. And this is an idea that we've had for a little while. Obviously our priority was the Northeast Ohio Habitat Corridor, but soon we knew we wanted to work on the ambassador program. Well, with the community growth opportunity coming up, Janice and I and some other members of the leadership talked about it, and we're going to move up the schedule on this a little bit. So for our members, several of you are already doing this. Jenny, I know Jim is another person that has expressed interest in this, wanting to go out into the community and like talk to individuals. And several of you are already doing this, whether it's individuals or organizations, and we want to better prepare you for that. So with this, we definitely know we'll include flyers for you. Sorry, not flyers, brochures, both for the Northeast Ohio Habitat Corridor, as well as our chapter. And Nationals also, because of the other initiative, going to be sending us additional national brochures. With that also, we'll give you like a little pin that says Wild Ones Ambassador with your name on it. We'll probably be giving you business cards too, might be more generic ones. So there's a few things that we're still banting about. But we're gonna pull this idea forward sooner than later as an initiative. So if this is something that interests you, like I said, whether this is small individually or you talking to organizations, or if you're just interested in hosting like a native plant party at your house and you want to invite friends and neighbors to have that conversation, let us know, send us an email, and we'll make sure we get you prepared. And also with this, I apologize, you will also be getting these booklets. There's a couple two different booklets that you'll be getting. So like I said, more to come. We'll try to arm you as much as possible, but I think it'll be fun since we're starting to pull together these materials for you guys.
Yes. Thank you, Jessica. All right, so in some more exciting news, I know we've been kind of also teasing doing our member garden tours. and having either a member or even a non-member host a tour at their house or property that they own. So we've had some inquiries come in and we're very excited. But we now have an official form to fill out to submit if you'd like to be a host. So we're looking to fill some slots for this summer in July, about mid-July. So if, you know, I know everyone's garden might look its best at different times. So if you're one of those people who like July is the good month for your garden, and you want to host, fill this form out. The QR code will take you there, or I tried to shorten the URL for you. We'll be sending this out to everyone and we're gonna have it posted on social media and everything like that. So don't worry if you don't catch it right now. Jessica also just put the form in the chat, so thank you.
Sorry, it might
So
not have come through nicely, but if you cut and paste it, it should work.
yes, yes, cut and paste. No, it's good. So very excited to have an official inquiry form for our tours. So more to come on that as well. Up next, we do have a few slides on our Northeast Ohio Native Habitat Corridor. Erin, would you like to take the mic and go through and I can just kind of click through, or?
Yes, that would be lovely.
Okay.
So I know some of us are very, very familiar with the Native Habitat Corridor and have helped get it started. But we may have some new folks here, so we're going to run through a reintroduction of the program now that it is officially launched to the public. So first, a big thanks to everyone involved with that, and especially Julie Slater, who's not here, but was championing the project for a long, long time, and will still be involved, but obviously has a nursery to run as well. And thanks to Jessica, Cassie, Milkweed Matt, Anya, and everyone else that has helped out with application processing and many different pieces of this project. So this project is introducing a regional corridor aiming to connect Native gardeners all throughout Northeast Ohio for now. And we view this as a corridor that connects all those wonderful local pathway projects, as well as other certification programs. So something that is free to do in addition to all of those other wonderful projects. And there's a couple different components to it. So I think I'll stay on this slide, but talk about some of those in 1 second. Maybe the last thing to hit on this one would be the goal, the main outcomes of the project we're looking to achieve are getting that connectivity within the region, as this awesome graphic that Cassie made shows. The more gardens we add to our map, the more we're showing our connectivity within our regional corridor. Let's go to the next slide, please, Janice. So the parts of this project include joining a map on our Wild Ones Greater Cleveland website. If you're interested, this is a old image now. We are up to 92 gardens as of today, and there's different ways to join the map. It is completely free to join, a short application to fill out to tell us a little bit about your native garden, but by no means do you have to have a fully fleshed out, perfectly manicured, beautiful native garden. Every plant counts, and so we want to see all those gardens in process as well. And there's a couple different options for privacy concerns. Of course, you can submit an exact location if you're comfortable with that. We also can obscure your location, or if you want just to note within our organization that you're on it, but not be shown on the map. Those are all options to be a part of the corridor. Maybe let's go to the next one. This is a great question. How many plants do you need? Like I just said, you can have just a couple getting started. Everything counts. These are a couple photos so far in process and with the sign, which I'll talk about in a second. But it's also great to check out the map and get inspiration if you need, see what other people are doing. Some people have done really, really interesting things like making a blog. I've also seen somebody link an iNaturalist account and post all of their observations of not only the native plants, but all of the other living things that are coming to their garden. So lots of great ideas to find on the map itself. Next slide, please. So other components, if you want, you can get a sign. Those do cost money. They are $25. The sign is in the bottom left-hand corner here. It is beautiful. A lot of thought went to it. It was made by a local artist, Jeff Santana. And
We do have more. There's a slide further down.
okay, I thought so. But if you ask, where can you get the sign? Right now, you can get it at participating nurseries listed here, and this is also listed on the website too. You don't have to rush to take this down or anything. As well as some of the many events Wild Ones is at. So I'm sure we'll talk about those more within this meeting, but they're also listed on the website too, if you want to get yourselves one of these beautiful signs, and I definitely do. I still need one. And a little bit more about the sign. A lot of thought went into it. What's included on this sign is some keystone species that support a great deal of Ohio specific wildlife. We have the cardinal, the white oak, smooth aster, and gray goldenrod. And if we didn't know, a keystone plant is a native that's essential to our ecosystem, that support a lot of our wildlife species, including caterpillar species. Another thing you can do along with a corridor is get a native plant kit. We've made it easy to get started. If you're not sure where to begin, you can choose to purchase one of these plant kits. There's different types based on if you have sun or shade or different habitats, and local nurseries are selling these. There's a list on the website and instructions as well to help get you started if you feel if you're starting from ground zero. And lastly, this is a bit more about the artist, who we'll feature more too on our social medias. I think the sign's really beautiful and is worth checking out this artist's other work. And the last thing I'll say about the corridor is if you are interested in being involved, we will probably take on a couple more application processors, and we're also looking for somebody who's willing to reach out to members and follow up with them after they've submitted the garden. And so I have a list of a couple people that I haven't followed up yet that Julia's given to me. So I will be reaching out to those people. And if they're still interested, we'd love to have them. If they're not, no worries. We're all volunteers here. So yeah, if you want to help out more, please reach out to us.
Thank you, Erin. All right, so speaking of volunteering and helping out, so we have our list of some volunteering opportunities. If you are interested, if you're looking to make a difference in the chapter, event coordination might be for you. So this is a really important role that we think would really help boost our efforts here behind the scenes to help, coordinate all that pre-process and day of process for event coordinating here. We're really hoping to ramp up some more events in the coming months and next year, especially now that we're on the ground running this past year so far. So if you're just looking to dip your toes in, and you're like, well, maybe I might want to volunteer, but I don't want to go full gung-ho here. We're looking for a few assistant chairs. It's just kind of helping out. Assistant membership chair, this is vital for the health of our chapter. Members are number one, and you know, making sure that we're welcoming new members and keeping in contact with our membership is really important. Assistant volunteer coordinator, you know, all the tabling events that we did in April and May, and we have a few coming up here in July. And even, you know, we did a planting, garden planting last weekend as well, you know, just rounding up those volunteers and making sure that everyone gets the information they need to have a great event. We're also looking for an assistant treasurer. By no means do you need to be an accountant or anything like that. You know, just have a general idea of bookkeeping, but really it's just, again, you're assisting. And having some tech ability would be great. So being able to check email regularly, participate in online meetings, and help oversee the budgeting would be great. And then something new, you know, with our community gardens that we are assisting communities, private entities with, it would be really great to have a chair / coordinator to help organize these. And, you know, not just with incoming, but also keeping that relationship with gardens that we've helped with in the past, and keeping that relationship and seeing how, you know, the gardens are evolving over time. You know, and I think in our minds, I think this person would work closely with our volunteer coordinator in helping to have boots on the ground for any actual installation dates and things like that. And of course, if you want to help spread the word, we always have we're always at a table near you at an event. So actually this weekend, we have two, the Summit County Master Gardeners, their tour of gardens is on Saturday, and we're gonna have a table set up at, they have a cute little kitschy name for the little shop area. I think it's like Pocket of Posies or something like that. But if you're local to the area, we're going to be on Sand Run Road for the Master Gardeners tour of gardeners, which is very exciting. Also tomorrow, and I don't know, Ray, if you want to mention anything about this, the native plant sale, is it actually in person?
We've got a couple volunteers coming to help out with distribution. We've got 23 different orders that will be picked up by those people at the, they'll be coming to the Sandstone Village to pick those up 10 to 2 tomorrow. So
Nice.
we're going to be hanging out there and putting some boxes of plants in people's trunks and that sort of thing.
That's good.
I will also have a few, whatever looks healthy, a few plants. I think that's going to be some milkweeds, and I've got some coreopsis that are ready. If anybody wants to give a donation for those, take a couple extra plants. Not a great inventory, but I've got a few things people may be interested in.
Yeah, that's great. And then in July, this is a Saturday, the Lakewood Garden Tour. We're gonna have a table set up for that. So more to come on that. So our recent events that we had, The Summit Metro Parks native plant sale was back on May 18th. This event was, it was crazy. The people lined up to enter the park when it opened. It was a lot, and it was really cool to see how many people came out from, you know, around the Summit County, Akron, Canton area. We had 2 tables set up. So it was nice to kind of have like, we had like an educational table and with the games and then, you know, more info. So it was kind of nice. People could trickle by and do a little bit of everything. So it was a lot of fun. We had our behind the scenes tour at Meadow City Nursery on May 31st. Was someone there that can give a quick?
I'll do it really quick, and then we will have to jump to Pet Park really quick.
Okay.
Because otherwise we're gonna lose Kate.
Okay.
All right, so Meadow City Nursery was very kind to offer a behind the scenes or tour, but also behind the scenes insight into their philosophy and the sort of the guidelines that they follow with regards to the responsibility behind seed collection, but also, you know, showing different methods of how they are growing their plants in different types of pots to see which one has the best to help avoid things like root binding and a few other things. And also to responsibly collect seeds and diversify, you know, their collections and things like that. So it was really great to not only see the plants that they had, but how, like, their philosophy behind those types of things.
That's great. I do have Input Park yet next. So, we have the wonderful Kate, gosh, I'm gonna pronounce your last name wrong. Cantonese.
Sure, that's good. That works.
Sorry.
Catanese, Catanese, either way, we go
Okay.
by both.
Okay. She's here. She is with Friends of Input Park. So she's running this project. So they had a planting day this past weekend. So we just wanted her to jump on and just chat a little bit about like her process and how everything has been going with kind of like where she is today with everything.
Besides
Just real
exhausted.
quick. Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, Jessica said that I would probably talk more about this in more depth at a later point in time. But basically we're a Cleveland city park. Our park has suffered years and years of deferred maintenance and deferred investment, as most Cleveland city parks have. And about a year and a half ago, a group of neighbors got together to help revitalize the park. And when we asked people what they wanted to see in this park, which was basically like a blank slate, because there was no native planting there beyond what was pre-existing in the park, people said that they really wanted to do some environmental restoration. They wanted to see some stewardship over the natural resources, which included a very vast wooded area. About 10 acres of the park is about a woods. And then there were also kind of some water issues in the park, areas in the park that were sod, that were just so soggy, marshy, and wet that no one could play on the fields that the city had installed in the 1950s. And whereas, you know, the average citizen would look at that and think, well, that's a problem that they're wet like that. You know, we kind of consulted with different experts like Dave and Julie from Meadow City and Ray from Webfoot Designs, and some other folks who came out and talked to us from the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District, to determine that actually the ground is supposed to be like that. It's a forested wetland area, most likely. And so we devised a native garden to actually embrace the wet, soggy area and restore it with some plants that would actually really love to be in that environment. So we enlisted Ray to design a garden for us. Initially, we had a small grant from Cleveland, the Cleveland Foundation's Neighborhood Connections project. And initially our grant was for like a 500 square foot garden. And we initially thought it was going to be a rain garden until we kind of learned more about the natural ecosystem and habitat of the area. And so we enlisted Ray because, you know, we went from like a 500 square foot garden that, you know, I felt comfortable designing myself into this kind of massive 3,000 square foot project. So we've been working on that with Ray and with the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District, and we sourced all of our plants from local native nurseries, and we just got everything installed last weekend. So we're at the phase of installation, and now we're moving into the project of mulching it and watering it and caring for it. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's a massive project. We could not have done this without the tremendous assistance of Wild Ones and of Ray especially. And we're very, very grateful to have connected with Wild Ones and the resources that you make available to the average citizen.
Thanks,
Thank
Kate.
you so much, Kate, and you worked so hard on this. And like we said, at a later date, we'll go much more in depth because Kate has barely glossed into the whole effort that she put into this, and so much more effort that she's actually putting into this park, including new play areas. We're talking another native plant garden area. She's doing a mural. Like, there's so much she's doing with this, so it's a wonderful example.
And we first connected with Wild Ones through an invasive species workshop that we had Jessica and Janice can't come and do with us last fall. And that actually, you know, led to other projects, and I'm sure we'll have more projects down the pipeline as well.
Yes, we are very excited. Thank you, Kate. And thank you, Ray. Look at this gorgeous design that Ray did.
And I just want to say, you know, every time I'm in the park, I see, or even if I'm just driving past, I see people walking over to the garden and looking at it. And, you know, people are just so excited because I don't know how many people on this call live in Cleveland or are in a Cuyahoga County, but, you know, Cleveland city parks are a really sad state of sod. It's all sod and there's not a lot of embracing of native plants, and that's not because people don't love it. It's because there haven't been any resources invested in these neighborhoods. So, you know, we're talking about ways of reinvesting in ways that restore the natural habitat and provide, you know, water pollution control and stormwater management, and in ways that will, you know, actually not only save the municipality financially, but also you know, set us up for ecological success in the long term.
Well said.
Thank
That's
you
great.
again, Kate and Ray. So
Yeah, I
very
love it. If
exciting.
Ray wants to say something, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to.
All good
That's great.
conversations.
Yeah, thank you. All right. We have one more event that we had, the Medina County Parks District, the native plant sale. We also did some seed packing because after all of our events that we had through April and May, our seed supply diminished greatly. So we had another quick powwow to pack some more seeds that we can give out through the rest of the year. So upcoming events. We touched on this a little bit. Ray's having his native plant pickup on Saturday. And it's also coming up is Pollinator Week, which we did not mention yet. either, but there's a few happenings going on around. I'm sure if you look up, you know, your city or the municipality, a larger municipality by you, I'm sure they're having something for Pollinator Week. So keep an eye out and see what's going on around town. As far as Wild Ones, we are hosting our volunteer appreciation picnic this Sunday. Jessica has graciously opened up her house to kind of give a breath of relief for all of our volunteers who have helped out so far this year with tabling, with seed packing, with winter sowing, with putting plants in the ground, you know, or anyone behind the scenes who's been doing administrative work or leadership with us. We want to appreciate you and say thank you. So we're doing a little cookout.
Just a few things with regards to that. One thing that we want to emphasize with our volunteers, whether you volunteered once or multiple times, this is for anybody that's helped, because we appreciate every little bit that, you know, that you do, because we realize it's hard work. And we want to recognize the efforts that you guys are making to make this a better place. In addition, it's going to be more taco bar style. But we will have some things on the grill in addition to the pre-cooked items. We'll be providing a lot of food, but if there's something special you guys want to bring, feel free to. There will also be swimming. So if you are going to swim, please make sure you bring a towel. I think we might have a few yard games. I think cornhole was mentioned. Just in case, I do recommend that especially if you're bringing a few people, to possibly bring a camp chair or two. I just want to make sure there is chairs more for outside for everyone as well. So hope you guys can make it. And hey, you know, like I said, feel free to bring your family and stuff like that. I know some people are bringing their kids so they can swim. So, you know, this is just a good day to have some fun and relax and chill. All right.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
So we are bringing back John Blakeman, who was one of our educational speakers on a previous month. We are devoting an entire virtual educational meeting just with him, so he can talk about the creation and maintenance of natural meadow habitats. It's kind of his whole, I think we had to cut him short because of time when he talked on the chapter meeting. So this includes his whole presentation. So that will be virtually June 26th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Look for, I believe the link for it was sent in our monthly newsletter, but we will send out a calendar reminder probably a few days prior. So that way everybody has that. And then in July, as kind of to kick off Lakewood's, the city of Lakewood's garden tour, one of our own members, Betsy, is going to be doing our first, maybe not our first scheduled, it's the first one on the books, home tour of her house in Lakewood. So it's going to be the night before the city's garden tour, and she's going to show us around her property, and also her adopt-a spot is a short walk right down to the end of her street that she's been working on, that Wild Ones has been assisting with. So we'll take a little stroll down there and see. A few of her neighbors also participate in the garden tour the next day. So we can always take a you know, special sneak peek before the actual day. So we're very excited that Betsy has offered up her home and her yard to show off for our first on the books garden tour. Kate put in the chat, Cleveland Garden Walk is the weekend before, July 13th and the 14th. And Impit is scheduled, Park is scheduled on July 13th. That's very exciting. That's very exciting. Thank you for adding that, Kate. In the interest of time, because we're over, we were gonna have a discussion about volunteerism as kind of a, push into our volunteer appreciation picnic this weekend. If you would like to chat about anything volunteerism related, we were just thinking, for someone who's a member or on this call for Wild Ones, what else are you interested in? What else, what's your cause? What helps you, or not helps you, but what makes you that you want to volunteer for? And obviously we know Kate, with Friends of Impit Park, that's her passion and that's where she's putting her time. So if we want to talk about it, we can. I know we're at 8:40, so we're about 10 minutes over time. But we can always chat about this later as well. If Erin, do you volunteer anywhere else?
Of course, yes. The Summit Metro Parks, where I live. I also live on the Towpath Trail, like Ben. They have a lot of wonderful volunteer events, invasive management. Their Wild Backyards program is also really wonderful. The Ohio Natural Areas and Preserves Association is invasive management within Ohio's nature preserves, which is some of the best remaining habitats in the state, and there's lots of others all around, depending on where you live.
That's great. I know. How did you were doing like the invasive training, weren't you? Last time we talked?
Yes.
Did that go?
Some
Okay.
parks will train you before you do their invasive management. A good idea. So first invasive management is July 13th. So
Nice.
sad to miss a garden tour. Looking forward to those.
Yes, me too. Me too. All right.
Well, I know a few people that are very interested in native plants, surprisingly. And I know a few people specifically said they couldn't make today's meeting because this is the Hold'em / Botanical Gardens special seed collection training that they were offering.
Yes.
So for native plants.
Good point, Jessica.
Excited
would
to hear
be-
about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely very interesting. So
My understanding is they're going to offer it again. I think they had 2 trainings available. This was one of them. I can't remember if this was the first or second one. But this is their first full year coming up. So definitely look for more. And I believe we're going to try to collaborate with them and Summit County Metro Parks to possibly collaborate on seed collection days from certain sites as well. So
yep.
Exciting.
mhm.
All right. We'll close out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in July, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the events we'll be at in the next month. So thanks, everybody.
And call out for those who haven't joined the map. Do it. Join us on the map.
That's right. Thanks, Jessica.
Give it more work.
We love the gardens. We love the gardens. Yes.
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 All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.